Yeah, well, I'm speaking from the experience of qualifications, first of all. I'm a fellow chartered accountant who's had a wide audit experience and specialised structuring, financial structuring experience of companies, private and in the public area. I worked in ICC Bank, a state-sponsored bank with hallmark credentials, and which has been referred to over the years until it was taken over about 7 years ago as the Academy of Banking because of its very strict and firm operation of banking principles, including fractional reserving and keeping exposures and investment into the various sectors at the correct balance and proportions, and liquidity management. A superb bank from the point of view of learning banking skills. I also have carried out, I'm a consultant in, an expert consultant in banking since I left ICC Bank 10 years ago. When I was in ICC Bank, I headed up the specialist property lending division, which was tasked at one stage with taking in loans originated in other divisions that were turned out to be underperforming loans, bad loans. They were discovered to be property lending type loans, disguised when originally advanced for the purposes of maybe meeting budgets and so on. But when they didn't succeed, they needed expert rehabilitation and recovery work and workout. So our division was expressly tasked with taking those on board for recoveries and realizations. And that was in the 1980s. So as regards first-hand exposure or experience in the area of loans workouts and recoveries and what's involved, the difficulties and challenges in that, realization of security, perfecting security, and just getting market exposure and realizing the underlying securities. At a microcosmic level, but it's the same principles applied, the same difficulties. They're just magnified when you're into larger amounts of money. But the complexities and the difficulties of ironing out the problems are the same. The word that people sort of feared to mention from the outset was nationalisation. And it's probably more a psychological and an ideological fear. It's something that doesn't have really any reality or tangibility. It's, oh no, we mustn't nationalise. It has the connotations that there will be state interference, state confusion, state paralysis, lack of market transparency, and all those things. That's not the case at all. The bank that I worked with, for instance, was a state-sponsored bank. We had no interference on a day-to-day level at all as regards lending decisions or sourcing deposits. It was an investment, an arm's-length investment by the state. And so long as we reported within the terms of reference of best banking practice, the state was quite happy to get a dividend and to have been the sponsor of such a bank, which turned out to be a hugely supportive bank of SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, an engine and an agency for European Investment Bank funds. They were channeled through our bank to businesses. But there was always the market test appraisal for every application that came in from every business. That did it stand up to rigorous testing? Was it fit enough to go to play the match, the company? There's no point in just handing easy money or vouchers out to people who A, haven't got the energy, the capability, the resources, the markets, the technical know-how to make their businesses a success. It's only sort of then creating what is an accident bound to happen, and there's no point in doing that. So there was always the test of realistic, robust testing, and once people could show that they had the ability to play at that match level in business, the funds were approved, and we kept close to the clients by looking at their accounts, the reports, visiting them and visiting their markets. Our banks here now, the main banks, can do the same. It's the sort of leadership, the board level leadership, that needs to be re-energized also. We have time to choose the right horse to get onto. What we've been doing in the preparation for NAMA is reviewing the loan books, taking a correct read, trying to get a correct read on the balance sheets, the assets of the banks, the crazy assets that were produced from the crazy credit that they actually sourced from interbank markets. So all the work that's been undertaken to try and appraise those and to get a fix and a focus on what is their market realizable value, to start sorting out the files, the housekeeping behind those loans. In other words, is the security in place? Because there's probably going to be some very unpleasant surprises when the realization work has to get underway. But to the extent that there has been good preparatory work and due diligence, let's presume there has, unless in the absence of being told that there hasn't been this work done. That all had to be done anyway, whether it's being done for the purpose of a NAMA executive team having to take the arrival of this cargo, or whether it's going to stay, the cargo is going to stay on board the vessels that are going to be better capitalized with their engines properly serviced and engineered, and with the teams properly, the crews properly instructed on the existing boats, or whether we're going to allow the cargo come with all sorts of spottiness and all sorts of documentation that may be doubtful onto this new ship, which Richard Bruton, and I don't want to necessarily put party tags on things, but he says a leaky vessel with the crew that's untested and a voyage that's uncharted. I mean, that about sums it up. But there's no problem having done, as it were, the METI checks on the existing boats, knowing how much repair and capital is needed, giving them new sailing instructions, new reporting modules and new boards. That same work can be done much better where it lies, rather than getting it shifted onto the new ship. If the minister is a man with short vision and he wants to please the public in the next 5 minutes, he can sort of do the turnstile presentation of the two pillars. A, we remove toxic assets from the banks, and B, we get liquidity back into the banks. I've explained how the liquidity back into the banks is totally illusory. It's turnstile. Money, 50 million out, in to replace 50 million out, or 50 billion out. And as regards the toxic assets, shifting toxic assets that haven't been fully admitted as to their true toxicity, because by saying that they're going to be moved at 54 billion instead of 46 billion, which would represent the 31 billion write-down, is fooling oneself again. It's going to create banks that will remain zombie banks. If outsiders like JP Morgan only yesterday come out with an analysis result or a review result that says $17 billion is needed in capital immediately in AIB and Bank of Ireland, and that's only at a 30% write-down level, well then, we're not facing the problem. We're fooling ourselves. And you've asked me, would it not be embarrassing to change around? I think it would be far more embarrassing in 5 or 6 years' time to be caught with a sinking NAMA causing losses of 20 to 25 billion of unnecessary extra losses, because A, NAMA isn't the right vehicle to do the collections and recoveries of the loans that we've identified, and B, to have created that with all the outlay costs of maintenance of NAMA, plus the operational inefficiencies costs, is, to my mind, landing the taxpayer with a time bomb, and it's just not on. The other way is clearer, it's honest, it addresses the situation, it puts structure on it, it puts measurement on it, and it allows the work to start in earnest with achievable targets far closer in sight. One of the advantages of writing down loans to the correct collectible amounts is that it provides impetus and energy to the work of achieving it, and also there's a morale. It underpins and encourages morale for those involved to be aiming at realistically achievable targets. And when there's success in that area, it becomes infectious, and it's good for traction and for getting on with the next job.